What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. Pretty simple concept today. I haven't talked about free agency for a couple of days just because some of the more minor moves have kind of been taking place and I didn't want to fill up a whole video with like very minor things, but I still think it's worth covering all these little things that are taking place, but we're just going to put them all into this video here. So hey, if you've enjoyed this coverage, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point and I intend to keep on doing so. But just remember that if you guys are like rude or disrespectful in the comments at all, I am kind of monitoring that. I'll give you a warning to make sure you say like, hey, I'll do better or whatever. If not, then you just get hidden from the channel. But anyway, let's get into the video. As always, we're just going to use Woj and Shams to just go through this in like chronological order. Basically, where we left off is with like PJ Dozier a couple days ago. And so going all the way back to July 5th, Franz Wagner had signed a 5-year, $224 million extension, which is pretty nuts at the end of the day. This was one that kind of got a lot of us talking in the Discord. And if you guys aren't in the Discord, feel free to join and hop in on the conversations and everything. We're having some pretty interesting talks there. But the Wagner one was one where we all kind of went, that's a lot of money for Franz Wagner, and I would tend to agree with that. For those of you curious, that's $44.8 million a year, or if we do the 269 divided by 5, right? It was 5, yeah, so that's up to 53.8. It's a lot of money for Franz Wagner, a guy that really hasn't been, like, we'll say close to an all-star level yet, but like he's a good player, right? He's a good young player. And what I was kind of talking about in the Discord with people when it comes to Franz is like, right, okay, the team just had some success. Franz was a big reason why that they were successful, right? Like obviously he's one of the key building blocks to this team. Another thing to think about with this team is like, okay, like free agents, that's not really something that they're typically bringing in on this squad, so it's probably best that they just lock up like who they have, right? Another thing to think about is presumably Orlando's going to continue to like keep getting better, and so they're probably not going to have a lot of like high draft picks coming in anymore anyway, so you probably just want to lock up the players that you guys have at this point. So while it is like a lot of money for a guy that's not extremely productive yet, like you hope that he keeps getting better. He's gotten better up to this point. He's clearly a very hard worker. He's a very motivated player. So you'd like to think that he'll kind of work his way into it. I mean, if he could get a consistent three-point shot under him, then you're going to have a really interesting player. I do hope that they kind of continue to fill this team with like some shot creators and stuff like that. I'm a little bit concerned that like the team being constructed here of like Banchero and Franz and throw Suggs in there, like none of them are real like go-getter bucket type dudes. Like yeah, like Banchero can kind of just do it because he's like that strong and everything, but that doesn't seem like maybe the best way to do it long term. I don't know, it's just something to think about when you're building this roster going forward. Next thing we had was Caleb Martin finalizing a deal with the Sixers. Yeah, that was a huge pickup for these guys. So shout out the Sixers for this one. Apparently he turned down more money from Miami to come here, so that's interesting in itself. Obviously, a very, very nice basketball player, very battle tested, like can shoot the three, can create, especially like off the catch. He's really good at being a drive and kick guy. We've just seen that out of him before. Obviously a testy defender. So the depth of the Sixers is really starting to look good now. Something that I brought up in the Discord with some people and just some other like coaches I was talking to is I was like, yeah, they've got a nice roster. They're incredibly undersized at like all their positions outside of center though, because obviously they got Embiid and Drummond. You don't get much bigger than those two dudes out there, so you're good there. After that, you start to look around and like you have Paul George at the wing who's got good size, but otherwise it's like it's Oubre, Martin, like Eric Gordon is pretty undersized. You got Maxey. Obviously, you got the rookie coming in. Why can't I think of his name right now? You guys know who I'm talking about, Dancing Boy. But yeah, you got like those guys coming in. It's like, okay, you've got kind of an undersized roster thing going on right now, but they do have like lengthy dudes, like in the sense that like they've got long wingspans, which is kind of interesting. Shout out the people in Discord that brought that up as well. So it's a really interesting combo at the end of the day, but a great pickup nonetheless. You're putting quality basketball players on the team, and that's what matters. The Sixers then waived Paul Reed because his contract was non-guaranteed and he was going to make a decent amount this year. Paul Reed could be a big that somebody picks up and he could be pretty impactful. I don't know who exactly needs it. Everybody could use some size like that at the end of the day. He can do maybe not as much of like the shot blocking, rim protecting type stuff, but around the rim he's pretty solid and he's a little more mobile than the average big, so somebody could do something with him. Moving on, the Spurs are trading Devontae Graham and a second round pick to the Hornets, who will then waive him. Obviously, the Hornets were the team that Devontae Graham had that big breakout year for. Hasn't really been a thing for him since then. Kind of just seems like it was a lightning in a bottle moment. I mean, he's a very skilled scorer at the end of the day, so you'd like to think that he could still capture some of that for somebody. Could be a good one for like a Phoenix Suns to pick up or something as like another reserve guard or something. So I don't know. I just think that that could be a good option for somebody picking him up for cheap at this point. Obviously, the Spurs are clearing some cap space and they're clearing out kind of their point guard rooms so that they could bring in more veterans and stuff. Obviously, the DeMar DeRozan trade happened. We did that in a separate video. Make sure you go check that out. To where now they're bringing in just like more established vets to really help grow this team. The Spurs are doing a really good job with their offseason, so major credit to them. Another guy that could really help somebody, Landry Shamet. The Wizards weren't going to keep this money and everything. They've got a lot of other players that they're trying to develop at this point. They're trying to figure out just like what young players are going to stick right now. And so it wasn't really worth keeping Shamet on the team for this much, but look, the dude can shoot the shit out of the basketball, right? He can help somebody, like you think like a Milwaukee or something like that, right? They could probably use a guy like that, maybe a Pat Connaughton replacement or something if they could find a way to move on from him. I even think like an Atlanta or something could really use him. So yeah, no, those are just my immediate thoughts on Landry Shamet, who he can definitely help some people. On to Miles Bridges though, 3 years, $75 million. Very interesting like outcome for this one, honestly. If you guys remember my ideal offseason, I left Miles Bridges out of there for, we'll say, the culture reasons behind it. I'm sure Charlotte Hornets fans are excited because Miles Bridges is a good player and you're trying to win some basketball games, and he can certainly help you win them. Like, there's no question that the dude's very talented. And honestly, $25 million a year for Miles Bridges, probably a pretty good steal of a deal. And I'm sure part of that is because they're like, look, dude, like, we're just keeping you around regardless of everything that you've been through. There was a lot of rumors that he'd be going to the Clippers or something like that, but I don't even know what their financial situation like looks like at this point, in all transparency, so I don't even know if that was a possibility. But the point is, he's back in Charlotte, so now you've got an interesting rotation going of you got LaMelo out there. We'll see kind of what they do at like the 2. Obviously, Brandon Miller's going to be a big thing. To John, will he be a guy that gets out there a bit? Mark Williams, they'll continue to kind of build with him. I hope Trey Mann gets like a good opportunity to really show himself this year. That's someone I'm really interested in watching. But no, Miles Bridges can do a bit of everything, man, and he can be a nice shot creator. He's aggressive as all hell. He plays well off of LaMelo. So let's just hope dude just keeps his nose clean at this point, just plays basketball and moves on with his life, man. That's what we want. We want redemption stories at the end of the day. We're never rooting for the downfall of somebody, but for $25 million a year, it's a hell of a deal. Like, he could be a really valuable trade chip at some point too if they really wanted him to. I'm sure that Charlotte fans would like to keep him or whatever, but y'all are far from a championship anyway, so I guess we'll see with them. Simone Fontecchio is going back to Detroit on a 2-year, $16 million contract. Shout out to the person that commented on my ideal offseason for Detroit the other day that was like, hey, you nailed that contract or whatever. Not that like we want to like keep score of like the things that I got right necessarily, but it's been kind of cool to see like the things that we've been like right and wrong about. Like, we nailed a couple of the draft picks. We nailed a couple of the free agency signings like to the dollar on a couple things. Like, I want to say we got like 4 or 5 free agency signings like completely correct, and a couple of the other moves that have taken place we've gotten right. So it's kind of cool. And as I told that person, I'm like, hey, every blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, right? But there is some science to this stuff at the end of the day. And while there's room for variance in anything, right, it's kind of cool when you can see the science like actually take place. But no, I think this is a great deal. Fontecchio was a huge addition to Detroit last year. When he came in, the spacing that he was able to provide, just a little bit of breathing room for people, was enormous, right? Detroit quietly putting together a very interesting offseason. Now, I know we were kind of shitting on them at the beginning of the offseason and being like, oh, what is Detroit doing? They took Ron Holland, which still, that move doesn't make any sense to me. But I can't wait to the point where I do like a season preview and I can kind of get the lineup in front of me and be like, okay, kind of how would this work? Like, how does this rotation look and everything? Because I think that could be a really interesting thing for this team now, because now you've got veterans and you've got some spacers on a team around like Cade Cunningham and like Ivy and Asar. Like, they'll obviously be big parts of it, Duran and stuff, and not hopefully Ron Holland, right? But Fontecchio is great for this team. You should have enough like solid vets on this team that can kind of space the floor and do a little bit of everything for you, to where hopefully Detroit's heading in a better direction than they've been the past couple seasons. But I'm not saying that they're going to be in the playoffs or anything, but man, you can't be that bad anymore. You just can't. Like, you're just doing such a disservice to the young players that you're getting. But no, good for Fontecchio, man. Very nice contract, easy to move, and should help them be better. This is a really nice pickup right here. I haven't seen like a bad signing yet for a team, so just I don't know, just a good offseason for people so far. But Dario Saric going to the Denver Nuggets on a 2-year, $10.5 million deal. I think this is just a great pickup. Dario Saric is a very smart basketball player. He's pretty solid defensively when he doesn't have to become like a lateral or like vertical threat, like at the rim or something like that, but just like guarding people in the post, actually a pretty nice player overall. But obviously the spacing and everything is going to be a nice thing. He can play the 4 or the 5, so he can play off Jokic if need be. He's just good depth to have, right? You've added some size, you added Duran Holmes as well, so you kind of have a 4 or 5 that you can throw in come playoff time in a couple different ways. They both do some different things, but should both be versatile enough that you can run some of that Nuggets offense through these guys. I think it's a great deal. Obviously, you still have to replace KCP somehow, which I think might just be kind of impossible, unfortunately, and I know a lot of Denver Nuggets fans are waiting for Westbrook to come. I think that'll be a great trade if they can make that happen. I think that'd be a really good pickup for them. But no, I think this is a good one at the end of the day. Again, just getting smart basketball players that can be versatile and can do a couple different things on this team is going to be critical. Whatever depth they can add, I really support it in this case. Yeah, you just have to find a little more wing help. Hopefully Peyton Watson can continue to grow. Strother, you hope that he continues to grow. I don't know if Christian Brown is ready to step into that kind of role yet that KCP is leaving, but you got to work with what you can work with at the end of the day, and this is a really good pickup for them. Obviously, you had the DeRozan trade and everything, like we kind of talked about briefly. Go watch my video on it if you haven't already. Again, quick recap on it. I think every team kind of did fine in that the Bulls at least got something for it. I think the Kings get at least marginally better at a minimum. I don't know if this really takes them that much further, but I think it's a good move nonetheless, and I think he could fit their system. I don't think it's a natural fit, but I think it's interesting, and the Spurs might have made out the best in it. Shout out them getting Harrison Barnes. I think that's a great pickup. Speaking of the Kings, then they also picked up Jordan McLaughlin, a guy I'm pretty familiar with. Love McLaughlin. 1-year deal with the Sacramento Kings. Fine, he can be a nice reserve point guard and stuff. I honestly think the Timberwolves will kind of miss him a little bit. I think he was a nice little burst of energy whenever he came in. I'm personally just a fan of him, so I like the added depth move and everything, because now what are they running with? They'll have Fox, they'll have Carter, obviously as the backup that should be able to contribute right away, and then you still have McLaughlin that can come in too. I think you got a nice little rotation there. Moving on to Shams now. Torian Prince signed a deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. Honestly, whoever picks up Torian Prince is probably making a solid move at the end of the day. Does a little bit of everything right. Pretty solid defender, big, strong dude, can guard multiple positions, can shoot the 3 ball a little bit, has played off of stars for a while now and has proven that he's more than competent of doing so. I know there was this point last year where the Lakers were just like really trying to play him as much as possible, and it was a little bit excessive, but like I think Torian Prince in limited minutes on any team is just a good one to have. Just having a guy off the bench, like I said, that can be a switch defender and a floor spacer in some capacity, I think is a good move. Presumably it's kind of a minimum contract deal, so I can't fault Milwaukee for wanting to do this, especially since we haven't really seen the growth at a Beauchamp that maybe they were hoping for. We can obviously keep hoping for that, and we'll keep rooting for him, but in terms of like immediate success and everything, like this guy's just used to being on good basketball teams and contributing at a high level, so shout out Torian Prince. There was an update on like the Knicks trade and everything. Shake Milton is also on his way, and Bates Diop was a part of it too. Yeah, there's Bates Diop is back on his way to New York. Bates Diop, not a horrible player by any means, just some added depth. Milton gets a 3-year, $9 million contract with over minimum in year 1 and 2 non-guaranteed years. Yeah, it's pretty much like no risk move for the Nets. And I still hope that Shake Milton can get back to where he was, because I found him to be such an intriguing player before. But just a small update on him. This was a real interesting one. Buddy Hield to the Warriors. Obviously, I don't need to explain like the basketball fit and everything. Is he the defender Klay Thompson was? No. But is he like that high level of a shooter? Yeah, he kind of is. Like, I'm so curious to see how many points per game Buddy Hield can put up in a Warrior style offense with like this, with Steph Curry also on the team and a guy like Draymond getting him the ball. I don't know, like, is it crazy to think that I'm expecting like 17 to 18 points a game out of Buddy Hield? Like, I don't know. I don't think that's like completely unreasonable at all. Are they still going to start Pods? I'd rather start Buddy Hield and just go with as much offense to start games as possible, and Pods can come in off the bench. That's at least like where my brain wants to go with it at first. But I like the Splash Buddies name as well. By the way, I think that's a cool one. The Warriors are obviously trying to do whatever they can to salvage the last couple of years of Curry's career, doing whatever they can. I think this is a good move at the end of the day. It brings, or it allows them to continue to play their style of basketball as much as possible. You need gravity guys like this to make it happen, so I can't fault them at all for doing it. I'm very excited to see what Buddy Hield can do, right? It's like, this is like his dream role at the end of the day, I have to imagine, so shout out Buddy. Building on the Pistons and everything, Malik Beasley, 1 year, $6 million deal with Detroit. Beasley got done like a little bit dirty by Milwaukee at points last year, where they just kind of started to take his minutes away, even though he was just an absolute flamethrower for them the whole season. And he's really not bad defensively at all, because he's a pretty athletic dude, a pretty smart player, all said and done. But man, was he shooting the shit out of the basketball last year. Like, he was hitting everything. So again, just adding another veteran shooting wing to the Pistons, you're not going to hear me complain about it. Like I said, it feels like they have a lot of them now, in all honesty. And so I'm looking around, and I really need to see a depth chart in what we're looking at here. But if they just want to go all switchability and like shooting out on this team with Cade and Ivy out there, and then you just fill in a Sar and Ron Holland when you can, like, I don't know, but like, this is kind of why, again, I'm looking at the Ron Holland move, and it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I'm like, we could have just gotten someone else that could probably contribute and grow in like a little bit more different role. Like, I don't know. It's odd to me at the very end of the day. It was a weird draft pick, but no, I think they're making good moves. Otherwise, they're clearly trying to like get better this year and put some solid players around Cade. So let's just hope we can have a better year for Detroit. Davis Bertans got cut. I don't know if you guys saw like his thing after, because he's Lithuanian, I believe. After like his game, they're like, "Oh yeah, did you see you got cut or whatever?" And he's like, "Oh, whatever, man. Like, it is what it is." And obviously, it's, you know, it's the media at the end of the day. What are you gonna say to them? But can Bertans still help a team? Like, defensively, he's pretty rough because he doesn't really have a ton of like quickness or anything. But man, like, if he really gets going, like shooting wise, I don't know. Like, he shot well last season, right? Oh yeah, it's right here. He shot 38% from three last season. Like, obviously he got that big contract before, and that's because he was just an absolute flamethrower before he ended up in like Washington. But I don't know, can he still help a team? He's got size, that's valuable in itself. I'm sure somebody will be somewhat interested in him. I don't know who. Somebody that could use a veteran presence that plays smart basketball at the end of the day. And like, why not just have like a reserve shooting big? Hornets also cut Pokashevsky, something we all kind of saw coming. He's just, I don't know, man. Like, it's really interesting when you get these really big guys that can move a little bit like that, but it's like, yeah, that's really cool. When they don't have any other skill really behind them, it's kind of tough, but I wouldn't be surprised he goes overseas, maybe kills it a bit over there for a year, and then maybe we see a return of Pokashevsky, but interesting nonetheless. Shout out Le GM. Now I hate saying shit like that, but you know, I couldn't not. LeBron cut like $2 or $3 million off his contract to get them under the second apron. Really smart move for them. For those of you that don't know, once you go under the second apron and you're back in the first apron, now you can like package players into trades again. And I believe it's like 115% of salary you can bring back in a trade. So what that means is, like, if I made $100 and I wanted to trade for somebody that was making $115, I could do that trade when I'm in the first apron. If I'm in the second apron, we both have to make $100, or the person I'm bringing in has to make less than $100. That's just what that means. So good for them. And LeBron's like, fuck it, $3 million, right? So that I can try to have a better basketball team around me. Like, not a big deal at the end of the day for somebody like him. So really just smart move. And some of the things that we're seeing now, like some of these contracts, and like we wonder why the amounts are the way they are. People are really trying to be smart around these aprons, man. You guys got to remember, some of the things that like these GMs do when we don't understand them at first, and this is just good life advice for people, when you don't understand something right away, realize that there are smart people making decisions at the end of the day, and there's probably reasons that you don't quite comprehend about it. So just something to keep in mind with that is, most of the time people aren't like completely idiots. People move towards things for certain motivations. So just know that there's always underlying things with that at the end of the day. And like I said, that's just good life advice. If you don't understand understand something, you don't have to hate it. But no, anyway, that's kind of the free agency updates that we have for now. Like, I don't see anything else coming in at my phone right now, and knowing my luck, as soon as I turn this off and start editing it, someone like Zach LaVine will get traded or something like that. But that can be its own video, I guess. But hey, I just want to give you guys this little update and everything. Content might slow down a little bit until like summer league like really starts. Obviously, like those have been going on. Like, I did watch the Bronny game and everything. It was a lot of fun. If you want me to touch on it for just a second, thought he looked pretty solid out there. He's a smart dude at the end of the day, but we kind of already knew that, and we won't do the whole overreact to one single game. But when like the official like summer league starts, that's when I'll kind of be doing some daily recaps of that. So hopefully you guys find that interesting. I'll be covering like the Olympics when those happen. If you guys have any like idea for what you want me to cover like with the Olympics, because I don't exactly know how I want to do that, because there's no way I'll be able to like watch every game, similar to summer league, right? Like, I'm not going to break down the strategy of summer league. Like, that's just not important. We're just going to talk about the players and what we're seeing. But no, if you guys have any ideas, you guys let me know. But otherwise, hey, we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much. Bye.